My name Ken Franklin, known as Big Dog, from the Menlos, and I'm at Mark Carmel Park.
Kev Mac video, you know this is for sure.
Kev Mac video,
open your soul, represent your ghetto, baby.
Kev Mac video,
you know this is for sure. Kev Mac video, open your soul, represent your ghetto, baby. For the dime moves and the lokes, for the 6-4s on spokes, for the OGs that did a dime, came back around on parole.
I grew up on 65th Street.
So when did you move to this neighborhood?
When I moved, I was born and raised here.
Okay.
My mom and them bought a house in 1963. Actually, you know, just before they moved in the house in 63, the Turner Apartments, they right across the street, they lived in there before they moved in the house, you know, where I was born at. And I've been there since 63.
And what schools did you attend coming up?
I attend all the schools. I went to St. John's preschool right here on 69th and Monzello or Estrella right there. Went to 68th Street School, went to John Muir, and went to Manual.
So tell me how the concept of Menlo came about.
Well, the concept of Menlo came about, well, we was a group of guys that, you know, played football. We was mainly a sports type guys, you know what I mean? We played football and stuff, and we was named. I mean, you know, we didn't want to join the Hoovers, which was one of the biggest gangs in the city. I mean, you know, they was the biggest gang in the city, and they had a line. They was coming down. It was the Hoover line. It was coming all the way down, and everybody had to join, and we played football, so we wasn't joining no gang. And the Hoovers actually named us the Menlo Boys. So, you know, the name came from the Hoovers. The Hoovers named us. We was just, you know, they was our brothers, our cousins, and all that. You know, Menlo started, it was like 70 guys. And when that came through, it just wiped out everybody. Everybody started joining Hoover. Families started splitting up. Brothers started joining Hoover. Some didn't. Cousins started joining Hoover, and then we just stayed and we wasn't joining no gang. And from us not joining the gang, they called us the Menlo Boys, and we end up just fighting.
So what year did they give y'all that name?
Whoa. So.
Was you in junior high school or high school?
I'd
say about 78, 77 when we was
in junior high,
getting down, you know, doing our thing, but on some real, like, you know.
This is Tim. Wait, this is Tim.
Introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Slim, better known as Tim.
Okay.
But our life, we grew up just, you know, we was into sports, and we wasn't into tripping or nothing, but we was all together and we loved each other, and that's where all this started at. We was all lived on 65th Street. I'm a 65th Street baby. I'm not even gonna lie, and just keep it 100.
65th and what?
Menlo for sure. But the power came at, we wasn't just gonna be pushed to be anything. We was gonna be what we want to be, and that's where it came to be.
We was them, they were us, and the Hoovers actually made us who we actually is right now today. You know what I mean? Being truthful and everything. You know what I mean? The Hoovers pressed us and made us gang members. Like, they taught us how to be gang members. And you know, that's why Menlo's was as tough as they was, because we really learned from the toughest at the time. The Hoovers was the toughest at the time. You know what I mean? That we know of. We didn't know nobody else but these people over here. And over here, they was the toughest at the time. So, and they pressed us and they made us. And that's why we as hard as we is, because we've been pressed. So we can't be pressed no more. So now, you know, it's staying, and, you know, just even being in this park. This park wasn't given to us. You know what I mean? This was earned. You know what I mean? You know, if we wanted to be here, we had to fight to be here. Every day we came up in this park, we had to fight to be in this park. You know, into a point, you know, we was able to have our own park.
And lotterying is not allowed.
So look, when they coined the term Menlo Boys, is that the actual name you guys went by?
Right, man.
We was just named that, and we accepted it. We accepted it because everybody we knew started calling us that. You know what I mean? Once everybody say that's who you are, then that's who you become.
So did it have a lot to do with the street you guys hung on, or where you lived?
Oh yeah, where we hung on, the street we hung on. We stayed on the line of Menlo and 68. You know what I mean? That was our main corner, Menlo and 68. You know, where we grew up. We did all our little gambling over there, and you know, whatever we did over there. Yeah, so you know, that's how that went about. You know, and that's why they named us that.
So in your formative years, you guys was cool with the Hoovers?
Oh, they was our family from the Five Deuces. The Five Deuces, as we came up, you know, we was family. We had family members back and forth, and through all that, you know, the Menlos and the Five Deuces never really went to war because the Five Deuces was on their own tip and they ran their own program. The 5'9" Hoovers, we was really close with them because there was a lot of guys from Menlo that left Menlo and went to the 5'9" Hoovers. So we was really, really close with the 5'9" Hoovers also. Now the 7-4s and the 8 trays, we had a lot of family members that went down there. But
I have a lot of family members from down there as well.
You know, from Menlo, we have a lot of family members that went down there. Yeah. And you know, but down there they had a different politic. They was the stronghold at the time, and they was pushing the line. So they, you know, our relationship with them wasn't as tight. You know, we had family members, but we wasn't as tight with them in our beginning years. You know, so, you know, we was more tighter with the 5'9" and the 5 Deuces. You know what I mean? And even right now today, you know, the 5 Deuces, we just never went to war with the 5 Deuces. We never had no problems with them like that. 5'9" later on in the years, you know, was succumbed into whatever the Hoover line was pressing, and then, you know, our friendship with them ended up breaking up. You know, but, you know, and through all that, you know, the 5 Deuces, we really never really was fighting with them.
So who was your biggest Hoover clique adversary?
All of them. Yeah, you know, the 7-4s was the main ones that was, you know, at that time.
Where does the gangster come from in Menlo?
Well, you know, that was added on by one of our members. You know, he had a cousin that actually was from 8 Trey. You know, and you know, at the time we didn't know the politics and of whatever it was, and you know, he came and introduced the Gangsta Crip to us, and it sounded good, Menlo Gangsta Crip, and you know that had a ring to it, and you know, we went with it, and that was it. You know, that's how we was, you know, that's how we was rolling at that time. You know what I mean? But it still wasn't no connection to the gangsters because, you know, we was still fighting against them. You know what I mean? So we was, you know, we didn't have no connection really with nobody but Menlos. You know what I mean? The 60s came and was like living with us. You know what I mean? They basically moved in our apartments with us. And we was living together in 85, you know what I mean? And, you know, we used to sleep and wake up together with 6-0s and different neighborhood, you know, people, you know what I mean? And then we was, you know, with the 40s in our early years, you know what I mean? Really just with the, you know, with the 40s when they first was like coming out and the 6-0s.
So who was some of the main 60s staying in them apartments or coming over here fucking with y'all?
Oh man, it was
Peter Wack.
Petey Wack.
Big Petey
Yeah,
Wack.
yeah, big Petey Wack.
Little Petey Wack.
Cow dog. Man, it was so many.
Shit.
All them, man,
Shit.
all the early years, them dudes was there. Keystone.
Shit,
Keystone played a big part in
Yeah.
who we is around here. You know what I mean? Petey Wack, he played a big part. You know what I mean? You know, being around here. You know what I mean? Because we didn't know how to gang bang. You know what I mean? We was learning, you know what I mean? We wasn't gang members, but we did it, but we didn't know the gang banging culture. That wasn't us. But we, you know.
So let me ask you, when you was in school, what gangs went to school with you guys?
Man, look, man, we was nobodies when we was in school. You know what I mean? We was 2 or 3 but it was the Hoovers. When I went to school, it was the Hoovers. I mean, elementary, when we was in elementary, well, let me just say this. Let me say this. Before that, my brother and them and me, when I was coming up as a kid, my brother and them was in hoods, and they had that over here. So, as a kid, my brother and them wasn't, you know, it wasn't all that real rowdy fighting like it is now today to be a gangbanger against another gangbanger. But I grew up, you know, claiming in-hood up under my brother and them, and they wasn't messing with the Hoovers then when I was a little boy from 10 years old. But when I was going to school, everybody was Hoovers. All the little kids used to say Hoover. You know what I mean? Then we went to John Muir. Then it was the mixture with the Six Deuce Brims and Hoovers. You know what I mean? And, you know, but the Brims was my partners. I mean, you know, them was the guys that I hung with, you know what I mean? You know, in my early years, never had no problems with them, you know, coming through school, you know what I mean? I got fair fights, everything, you know what I mean? You know, messing with my Brim friends, you know what I mean? You know, I had to equal without even having all the dudes, you know what I mean?
So being over here since 1963, was it ever a time where Brims came on this side of Gage?
Oh man, look, wait a minute. Brims used to have.
Wow.
Look,
Yeah.
look, when I was coming up, the Brims used to have all this.
Yeah.
All our area used to be the Brims when I was a little boy. You know, my brother used to be from Brims, you know what I mean? And all that. So, you know, and
They was the businessmen with the hats and all that. The Brims had Stacey Adams and all the nice clothes and stuff. Oh, they was popping. They was popping all through everything. They was doing their thing.
Let him
They was
get
doing
it. We'll get to you. We'll get to you.
yeah,
Come a little closer.
yeah. The Brims had all this. All this was the Brims. You know, I didn't watch this switch over and over, you know, and then when I was a little kid, you know, it was the Slawsons. My brothers and them was involved in the Slawsons. But you know, back then stuff was changing in a year. The whole scene had changed. 6 months, it'll be something else. You know what I mean? Back then it was just happening like that. So like as I was coming up as a little boy, we had the Slawsons. My brother was from the Slawsons, and all the Slawsons used to party at our house. And the one name that I never forget, and they used to always say he was the leader of the Slawsons when he was at our house, and they called him Skillet. And him and his sister lived directly across the street from 68th Street School. You know what I mean? I used to go over there and see them, and they knew me as a little boy. You know what I mean? So, you know, just the gang culture over here, you know, we was just born and raised in it, but it wasn't as bad as when we actually got it in our hands.
Right.
You know what I mean? But yeah, this used to be the Slawsons, as I remember. Then all the Bloods was all over here, you know, and then that switched up. Then, you know, most naturally the Hoovers just been the Hoovers been a gang ever since I can remember as a kid. Like, you know, just the Hoover Connect. They always had, you know, they always had a hand in all this down here, you know, and yeah, this just switched up so many different times.
So do you remember what year the Brims really started getting pushed up out of the south side of Gage?
Well, it wasn't really like they got pushed up outside, you know, because they kind of like floated to that area. They just kind of like left It wasn't no.
Just by default.
Yeah, it wasn't no.
No.
Fight, or they didn't have no challenge.
Right.
If they would have stayed, they would have stayed. But they kind of like floated off,
Okay.
and just started being more toward Harvard Park and stuff like that, and being toward that side.
Oh, that's good shit. Do you know the founders of Menlo?
Yeah.
Give me a roll call.
Well, look. The thing about founders then is like everybody that was over here ended up being a founder because we was named Menlo.
Right.
You know what I mean? It wasn't nobody that stepped up and said, we gonna be Menlo and we all line up and we Mentlos. No. All of us is founders at that, and a lot of and when you want to say that, a lot of founders from Menlo is from Hoover. And you know what I mean? When you go to that, I mean, we got a lot of early age guys. You know what I mean? We got Gangster Man. You know what I mean? He's one of the founders. You know what I mean? One of the first guys. You know what I mean? We got E, his brother. You know what I mean? He's one of the first guys. Me, myself, was one of the first guys. We got Slim over here. He was one of the first guys that was around. We got Capone. We got Mud. You know what I mean? That was one of the first guys, along with some of his family members that turned Hoover. You understand what I'm saying? It's just and it's just a lot of guys. But this the main guys that I can think of right now. And if you could come up with some more guys, Tim,
I don't need to come up. I can name a lot of them. But the thing is, I can name a lot of them. I just can't think. I can't.
Yeah, that's how I beat you.
But
it's all good.
Yeah, but those are some of the the main guys that stood the time. You know what I mean? And at the early age of Menlo, it was really three guys. It was me, Gangster, E, and Gardell. We was all together. If you would have touched one of us, all four of us was fighting together in them early years.
Was there ever a time when Mark Carmel belonged to the Hoovers?
Yes, yes. I mean, there's no doubt about it. We had to fight to come here. When we came to Mark Carmel, this used to be a school. My brother used to go here before it was even a park. They was here. They occupied the park, but when we came in, we had to fight to be up in the park. And until we fought to a point where,
How come you got Hoovers in the 50s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 100s, but not in the 60s?
Yeah, that's what I'm telling you. That was the line that they was pushing. This line from Florence to Gage, they was pushing it, and we didn't want to join no gang. Gotcha. So we the guys that didn't want to join a gang, and
so that's where the line got cut.
And they named us the Menlos, and the Hoovers named us the Menlos, and we fought, and we ended up being the Menlos in this area. But they gave us that name though.
And to cut the line right here. From all the hundreds and everything you said about, it's true. It's true. But it got cut from Florence to Gage. It got cut off. And we fought to do that, and it is what it is.
There was a shooting that happened here in '87. Tell me about that.
It was a fight, and then it was shooting. And then, this kid got shot right there on the thing, during that time. There was a few people that died around here, in these parks during that wartime, during this park. Around the park, people was getting killed. People was getting killed inside the gym when it was vacant and stuff like that. They was dead bodies, so it was a lot of You know, it was a lot of war and killing. You know, people was trying to find their position. A lot of people died. A lot of people died. You know,
Since this gang violence.
yeah, since this gang violence.
That we thought was the shit back then.
Man, and you know, people was dying out here, man. You know, just to be able to come to this park. You know what I mean? Because the guys from this community didn't feel like they had nowhere to go. They was trapped back there and they didn't have nowhere to go and they couldn't even come to the park. So, you know, they fought to be able to come to their neighborhood park. And, you know, there was a lot of killing for that to happen.
Was the wars worth it?
Well, I wouldn't say people dying would ever be worth it, but, you know, I mean, to have somewhere that our community could come, you know, it's a great thing. You know, I mean, this park has been a great blessing to our community. Mm-hmm. You know, like I said, you know, earlier, you know, I mean, with summer night lights and stuff like that, coming to this park, and everybody from all these communities was able to come to this park and get to know each other. It lowered violence overall. Overall, it saved a lot of lives. I could say that. Overall, it saved a lot of lives because of the summer night lights coming here to this park with intervention. You know what I mean? You know, PP. You know, and Chapter 2. You know what I mean? You know, I was messing with them. You know what I mean? They did a lot of good work around here in the community, helping get the guys together. You know what I mean? So overall, it saved a lot of lives. I say that. Yeah, they need more.
This is Los Angeles. What a mark. Make sure that's even